All right, diving in today with a deep dive on Bitcoin.
Okay.
And hold on, because this isn't your average crypto chat about, prices and predictions and all that.
Right.
We're going deeper into this idea of Bitcoin being part of what some are calling an information war.
Yeah.
Wild.
It is. It really is a fascinating concept because what we're really talking about are these fundamental questions about control, freedom, and the power of information all playing out around this technology.
It's true.
Yeah.
And to help us unpack it all, you brought along an article titled Bitcoin's Role in the Information War and Its Broader Implications.
Yes.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you paint a picture of what this information war actually is?
It's essentially a struggle over the narrative surrounding Bitcoin. On one hand, you have proponents who see it as this tool for individual empowerment,
Right.
a way to break free from traditional financial systems and the control they exert.
Yeah.
On the other, you have critics who view it as a threat, often focusing on its energy consumption or potential for illicit activities.
Sure.
The battle is for hearts and minds, trying to sway public opinion and ultimately influence policy and regulation.
It's like this undercurrent of tension
Right.
running beneath all the headlines about Bitcoin.
Totally.
And speaking of headlines, we can't ignore the elephant in the room, the energy consumption debate.
Right.
You've got figures like Bill Mayer claiming Bitcoin uses a whopping 8% of global electricity. What's the real story there?
That 8% figure is a classic example of misinformation taking root.
Wow.
It's been debunked numerous times, with actual data suggesting Bitcoin's energy consumption is closer to 0.5% of the global total.
Okay.
Now, even 0.5% isn't insignificant,
Right.
but framing it as 8% paints a very different picture, doesn't it?
For sure.
It begs the question, why does this type of misinformation gain so much traction?
It definitely makes you wonder about the motivations behind those pushing certain narratives.
Right.
And it ties back to this idea of an information war, where controlling the information, even if it's skewed, can have a big impact. But even if we set aside the misinformation, the energy debate is still complex.
It is.
The article mentions Bitcoin mining increasingly relying on renewable energy sources, for example.
Exactly. And then you have to consider the context in which Bitcoin is being used. In countries with unstable grids or unreliable banking systems, the energy cost-benefit analysis might look very different.
Right.
For individuals facing hyperinflation or limited access to traditional finance, Bitcoin can offer a lifeline,
Sure.
a way to safeguard their wealth and participate in a global economy.
So it becomes about more than just kilowatt hours.
Exactly.
We're talking about access, opportunity, and individual empowerment.
For sure.
It seems like even this one issue, energy consumption, is deeply intertwined with the broader themes of control and freedom that define this information war.
Totally. Yeah.
It's interesting how this idea of control plays out in the article's exploration of Wall Street.
Yeah.
Their growing interest in Bitcoin.
Right.
It feels like a plot twist. We've gone from Bitcoin being this fringe anti-establishment idea to having giants like BlackRock, BNY Mellon, stepping into the ring.
It's a definite shift in the landscape, for sure.
Yeah.
Remember when Bitcoin was almost synonymous with being anti-establishment?
Yeah.
And now these institutions are acknowledging its potential.
It's wild.
With BlackRock even going so far as to call it a potential global monetary alternative.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement coming from them.
It feels like that adds a layer of legitimacy to Bitcoin.
I think
something that its critics have long argued it lacks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When institutions of that stature start shifting their stance, it forces people to pay attention and reassess their own perceptions. It all boils down to trust, doesn't it?
It really does.
These institutions are built on it.
Yeah.
And their willingness to engage with Bitcoin speaks volumes.
For sure.
Yeah.
And this ties back to the information war in a big way.
Huge.
Because now it's not just about whether or not you believe in the technology itself, but who you trust more. The traditional financial gatekeepers or this decentralized system.
Exactly. And this is where the article's point about Bitcoin and the First Amendment really grabbed my attention.
Okay.
It argues that attempts to regulate or restrict Bitcoin could be seen as infringing on free speech rights.
That seems like a stretch.
It's interesting.
How can a digital currency be a form of free speech?
It's a novel argument, and it hinges on the idea that Bitcoin is more than just money. It's a form of expression.
Okay.
By participating in this decentralized system,
Right.
users are expressing their desire for an alternative to traditional centralized financial structures.
Okay.
They're opting out of a system they may view as restrictive or even oppressive.
So in that sense,
Yeah.
Bitcoin becomes a form of protest, a
Exactly.
way to challenge the status quo simply by using it.
Precisely.
Interesting.
And that's a powerful narrative,
Yeah.
one that resonates far beyond the tech-savvy early adopters.
Right.
It taps into this universal human desire for autonomy and self-determination.
It makes you think about those who are drawn to Bitcoin,
Yeah.
not necessarily for its investment potential,
Right.
but for what it represents.
Yeah, for sure.
This idea of opting out of a system they don't trust.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And this ties into the concept of global liquidity.
Yes.
Which the article highlights as being closely linked to Bitcoin's rise. Right? There was that whole section about the correlation between the two.
Yes.
Can you refresh my memory on that?
Of course.
Okay.
The data suggests that as global liquidity increases, meaning there's more money flowing around the global economy, Bitcoin tends to rise in value as well.
Okay.
This suggests that it's being viewed as an alternative safe haven, a hedge against inflation and economic uncertainty.
So when people are feeling uncertain about the stability of traditional markets, they turn to Bitcoin as a kind of safety net.
In a way, yes. It's not tied to any single country or central bank, which makes it appealing during times of geopolitical or economic turmoil.
It's interesting how these seemingly disparate threads, the energy debate, Wall Street's involvement, the First Amendment argument, global liquidity, all weave together to paint this complex picture of what Bitcoin represents in this so-called information war.
It's fascinating.
So we've got this technology, Bitcoin, that's at the heart of a struggle for narrative control, facing criticism over its energy use, while simultaneously attracting attention from the very institutions it initially seemed to challenge.
It's true.
And on top of all that, it's being framed as a potential tool for individual empowerment and even a form of free speech.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It really is. It really highlights how technology can act as a catalyst for broader societal conversations. Bitcoin isn't just about code and algorithms. It's forcing us to examine our relationship with money, power, and information in the digital age.
And this article argues that Bitcoin is, in fact, winning this information war. At least in terms of shifting the conversation. But what does that actually mean?
That's a good question.
What happens if Bitcoin does become this dominant force?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And like any major shift, there are potential upsides and downsides. The article touches on this, suggesting Bitcoin could empower individuals by giving them more control over their finances.
Especially in regions with limited access to traditional banking.
Imagine
a world where your financial well-being isn't solely dependent on the stability of your local currency or government. That's a powerful idea.
Incredibly powerful, especially for those who've been excluded from or underserved by traditional systems.
Exactly.
But then there's the flip side. Could this decentralized system actually lead to new forms of inequality?
That's the question, That's the crucial question we need to grapple with. Will we see new power structures emerge? With early adopters or tech-savvy individuals holding the keys to this new financial landscape? It's easy to get caught up in the utopian ideals. But understanding these potential pitfalls is critical as we navigate this evolving terrain.
It's true. It feels like we've only just scratched the surface of a much larger conversation.
For sure.
We've gone from debunking myths about Bitcoin's energy consumption to exploring its potential implications for free speech and global finance. There's a lot to unpack here.
A lot to think about.
What are some of the key takeaways you hope our listener walks away with?
I think the most important takeaway is recognizing that Bitcoin is more than just a currency. It's a social experiment, a technological innovation, and a lightning rod for debate about the future we're creating. Engaging with these ideas, even if you never buy a single Bitcoin, is crucial for understanding the forces shaping our world.
It's a reminder that sometimes the most valuable thing we can do is ask the right questions.
For sure.
Challenge assumptions and stay curious.
Absolutely.
It's about going beyond the headlines and digging deeper.
Yeah.
Which is what this deep dive is all about.
Exactly. Precisely.
Right.
Because whether Bitcoin succeeds or fails as a technology is almost beside the point.
Right.
It's the conversations it sparks.
Yeah.
The questions it forces us to confront that will have the most lasting impact.
It's true.
Yeah.
So to our listener, we leave you with this. As you continue to encounter Bitcoin in the news, in conversations, or maybe even in your own financial explorations, remember that it represents something much bigger than just its price.
Totally.
It's a symbol of the ongoing evolution of our relationship with technology, finance,
For sure.
and ultimately each other.
Totally.
And that's a conversation worth continuing.
I think so.